So hello and welcome to the Sea Change session focused on This is Good Business. And I'm so psyched to be joined today with a couple of great colleagues. My name is Kate Williams. I'm the CEO of 1% for the Planet. And I'm joined today by Ben Anderson from BeeLab and Austin Whitman from Climate Neutral. And just a little bit about 1% for the Planet, and then each of them will introduce their awesome organizations. And our overall focus is to share with you a conversation about the role of certification organizations in your business and in how we move forward in terms of sustainability. So 1% for the Planet is a global network, and we inspire businesses and individuals to make those daily commitments and changes to support environmental nonprofits. And we've directed hundreds of millions of dollars to environmental nonprofits all over the world. And we have thousands of business members, we have individual members, and then we also have our amazing nonprofits who are driving impact. And really what we focus on, and a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, is sort of how our different organizations coexist and live together. So what makes 1% for the Planet unique is that we're really focused on environmental philanthropy. And we make environmental giving easy and effective with three kind of main values that we offer. One is advising. It can actually be hard to know how to give. So we advise our individual and our business members on giving strategies and how that can best align. We help businesses. Secondly, we help businesses and individuals tell the story. There's a lot of power in telling the story of impact. So we focus on helping with that. And then last but not least, and relevant to this conversation, we certify the giving annually. So we are a third party, and our logo on a business product or service means that that business has been certified on an annual basis, that they've given their full 1%. So lots to learn and lots to dig into here. And we're going to do all of that today. And I'd like to turn it over to Ben Anderson, who's the CEO of BeeLab US and Canada, to introduce yourself and the work of BeeLab, and then you can turn it over to Austin from there.
Sounds great. Thanks, Kate, and good to be with you, Austin, and with everybody that's watching. So I'm Ben Anderson, and I work for BeeLab. You may know BeeLab, but more likely you know or have heard of a B Corp or a certified B Corp. And so BeeLab is the certifier of B Corps. And I actually came into this role. I used to work for a company called Preserve, and was responsible for us kind of assessing whether we wanted to be a certified B Corp. So I was on the other side of it, making that choice, and we certified back in 2011. And so B Corps voluntarily choose to undergo a rigorous assessment. And there's three components of the certification. The first is just meeting very high levels of verified social and environmental performance. The second is making that performance visible and transparent, and that's hosted on our website. And the third piece that I think is really distinguishing is that we have and require legal accountability to a stakeholder governance approach. And so you may have heard of a benefit corporation, and that's a new corporate form that we created. And there's a few different ways that we can accomplish that with companies depending on your incorporation type, but often referred to benefit corp governance or stakeholder governance, and we have a way of embedding that into your corporate structure, your operating agreements. And so another thing that's differentiating is it's a holistic assessment. And another way of saying that is that we rely and lean on and stand on the shoulders of many other certifiers like Austin and Kate, Fair Trade and LEED. We roll those up into a holistic understanding of a company. And there are now over 3,700 B Corps around the world in 70 countries in about 150 industries. And you may know Ben & Jerry's is 7th Gen, Patagonia are some of our iconic brands, or Athleta, which is part of the Gap, so part of a public company, or you may have heard of the IPO of Lemonade earlier this year, or know multi-billion-dollar companies like Natura and The Body Shop. And so those are some of the members of our community, many also smaller and growing companies as well. I think I'll turn it on to you, Austin.
Great. Well, thanks, Ben and Kate, and great to be with you both in this funny virtual setting. But maybe we can do it again sometime in person. So a couple of years ago, I co-founded Climate Neutral because actually a lot of the probably similar principles that led to the formation of your two organizations there has just been a massive market failure around dealing with the big problem of climate change. And, you know, in a couple of short years, we've gotten 250 companies into our cohort, meaning that companies have either fully certified or committed to getting certified, what we call climate neutral certified. And the real surprise when we started launching the organization was that in spite of the gravity of the problem of climate change, there, you know, and 400 or so labels around the world, there was nothing that spoke directly to the problem of climate. And so we felt that the average consumer who's increasingly concerned about climate change really would appreciate a symbol of brands that have measured their carbon emissions and offset those carbon emissions and committed to reducing emissions in the future. So we're definitely not anywhere close to as far along as the two of you are in growing the cohort, but it has definitely grown quickly, and we've added a number of companies that folks would recognize, many of whom are 1% for the Planet members, as well as B Corp certified. I think at last count, we had about 55 of our companies who are also 1%, and about 37 who are also B Corp. So some good overlap there. But, you know, we're sort of looking at this, knowing that there's been a lot of work going on for many, many years around climate, but really feeling like a key sort of, force has been missed, a key opportunity has been missed, which is the consumer. I think if you ask the average person out there what they're doing about climate change, they'll probably have some answers that don't really mean anything, or, you know, answers that they think are changing how they're impacting the climate, but in reality aren't amounting to a whole lot. And so we are trying to mobilize consumers by speaking a language that they can understand. So we think of this platform as sort of having two purposes. One is to enable companies by giving them a clear roadmap, but the other is to also enable consumers. And the more we can enable consumers, the more we have a value that we're driving for companies and a real incentive for them to get certified. There have been standards around for carbon neutrality, for carbon footprinting, for carbon offsetting, and most of them exist in 1,000-page documents and are hard to understand and hard to digest and hard to act on. And so we've tried to boil the best of what's out there into something that's simple and actionable, which has been a really important driver of getting as many companies as we've gotten on board in a short time. So I will leave it there. And I think now it would be interesting to hear from you both on what kinds of things you've heard about certifications in the market that might not feel quite right to you, what kinds of myths there are. Obviously, people have perceptions about labels that they see and these types of systems, and would love to hear if you have any stories about myths that you'd like to debunk here in this forum.
Thank you both. So great. I love just talking shop with people who are thinking about many of the same things. So it's great to have this opportunity. And I think your question's a great one, Austin, because I think there are myths, maybe too strong a word, right? But, you know, some perceptions that people have. And I want to build on something you brought up, Austin, in terms of just the role of the consumers and what they're looking for. And one of the things that we've been seeing, which would be, you know, something that I think is good for people to understand and for businesses to understand, is that that these certifications are not just for products, not just for consumer packaged goods where someone can pick it up off the shelf and look at the logo on the packaging. Increasingly, what we're seeing, and I would guess the same is for you, is that as consumers are getting more clear about the fact that they want to address climate change, they want to have their dollars drive solutions, they're thinking about services as well. So one of the trends that we've been seeing, and one of the things that I think is really important for people to understand about certification, is that it can also extend to services. So in the case of 1% for the Planet, you can choose your life insurance, you can choose your bank, you can choose brand and marketing agency, you can choose a fitness trainer, all of whom are giving back their 1% and are certifying that annually. So it's more than, you know, just a product, a logo to put on a product label. It's a way that, really, if you think about it, every one of your dollars spent at any of the different kinds of things you spend your money on can drive change. And Ben, you mentioned the 150 different industries, and we're at about the same. We have no more than 10% of our network in any single industry. And that's been really interesting to see, because early on it was, definitely, more focused on, outdoor initially, and then, certainly consumer goods. And then it really has spread from there. So I'd be curious to hear from both of you. What are some of the things that, you hear and see that you would want to debunk?
Sounds good. I'll pick that up, Kate. And it's true. I agree with the people know the consumer products, and so they think that's the most of the mix of our business is probably about a quarter. But we do actually have a lot of food companies, and so many of you will know the bee from it being on your pantry shelves. So three things that come to mind for us are one is that it's rigid. In our case, we have a standard system that underpins it. That looks at social, environmental, worker governance, and customer practices. And you have to get to 80 points, but there are about 200 available points. So there are a lot of ways up the mountain. You still need to be measuring the whole and performing in different areas, but there's lots of ways up the mountain. The second is that the certification is the destination. It's like you get that badge and you're done. What we see in our community, one, is that people then, when they have a system for measuring, want to improve. And so it's more of, these are guardrails for running the business and aligning the value system that you want to have. And so you join, you want to improve, and then you naturally want to build community and take collective action. So that's where we're seeing a lot of power. So it's really like, it's a waypoint in your journey. And then the last thing is that the certification will do the work for you. And what I would say is, it's more, you're getting the benefit of a brand, but you're joining a platform to connect, create community, and then take collective action. And I find that the companies who put something in get much more out of it, whether it's on the branding front or engaging with community. It comes back manyfold. And so there's some of the things that come up. And then, like, a fourth one I just thought of while we're talking is, often I get asked a question like, who's your competition? And I think of all of us on the call as collaborators, not competitors. And we also do have a lot of overlap with 1% too. And so I think increasingly we are all trying to work together and collaborate towards systems change.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ben, about community. It's something that we hear a lot as people are trying to figure out, once they've gotten introduced to the concept of carbon neutrality, just how they want to attack it. And usually they've got a few different choices, but the thing that really appeals to them about becoming part of the certified community is that they'll do it once, and then over the course of the year, they'll interact with other companies and they'll learn and we'll trade ideas. And then a year later, they'll find themselves recertifying just with a whole lot more information and a whole lot more kind of understanding of what their share of the problem is and what to do about it. The community aspect has been really, something that I didn't fully appreciate when we launched it. Sort of it's tempting to focus on just the technical aspects, but there really is so much value to having companies all working together. So I'm trying to think about things that we've heard on the on the myth column, and we certainly have heard some folks say, well, I just need to do one of these certifications, right? Or do I need to do more, or is there any benefit to doing multiple certifications? Don't they all kind of count the same thing? And there's definitely there are a couple examples of where we've heard, well, we just don't have enough room on packaging for 3 different labels. We only have one label that could fit on our packaging. And I guess that's a practical consideration, but the reality is that a label is just one of dozens of marketing channels that companies have. And so we encourage people to think bigger than just the real estate on the label. And when it comes to that practical question of where do I put this thing, and then it comes down to, well, what's the impact of my organization? As a company that's thinking about getting certified, what are the things that I am responsible for addressing? And your certifications both do very different things, and ours is very narrowly focused on the issue of climate change. And so what we try to do is encourage people to think of these as highly complementary, because there are many different opportunities for businesses to contribute to solutions, and by becoming certified against multiple frameworks, you can show to consumers that you're actually you're doing a whole lot. And I think certifications are becoming kind of the language of sustainability, in the sense that long reports are hard to digest, but a certification sends a very clear signal, and a series of labels alongside each other sends a signal that the company is thinking about all of its different types of impact. So it will be interesting to see. I think the three of us and our organizations have a responsibility to make these certification processes as complementary with each other, and to the extent that we can avoid duplicate effort, because a lot of the companies we work with, they do have limited resources, and somebody says, well, I have time for, I've got time for one certification process over the next 6 months. How do you get them to do two? And I think one way is to show that there's a lot of opportunity to check 2 boxes at once or 3 boxes at once when they're looking into the the questions that they need to answer for getting certified. So put that in the to-do column. Make it easy for companies. But there's no question that there's value to doing multiple certifications.
Those are just such great points, of course, coming from both of you. And I guess as sort of like a thread to pull it together is, really each company, everyone has the opportunity to craft the story that they want to tell about how they're making an impact. And I think there's a real opportunity to, and we've seen it, all of us have seen it across many of our companies who are creating their story around how they're a 1% member who's giving back, and part of their giving is going to their B Corp certification, because that's an important way that they're accomplishing other goals that they have. And then they're also sort of addressing their climate change concerns and goals through a climate neutral membership as well. So that's that becomes that company's story and how they position it and how they choose to do their giving. And I think one of the beliefs of 1% for the planet, which I also would to sort of add to the to-do list kind of way of thinking about it, is everyone has a 1%, and every day you have a 1%. So thinking about these might be overwhelming in one fell swoop to think about these 3 certifications. But again, we've seen so many companies who have taken a step with one or the other of the, these represent sort of different entry points. And then they join the community, which is hugely powerful, as both of you have said. And then they realize like, oh, okay, I was, I got certified as a B Corp. Now I want to become a 1% for the planet member, because that nonprofit giving is important to me, in addition to all the changes that I've made in terms of how I run my company. And I also know there's like real overlap there. Oh, and it's really important to me and my clients to hit our climate change or our carbon goals. So now this is something I want to add. So it can happen. You can build a plan and step toward it. And I really do think, love, Ben, that you just made the point of saying, we are collaborators, not competitors. And we really do feel like there's such a great opportunity for all our models to work together, and they are knitted together in terms of, how they operate, in terms of what counts toward what. And we don't need to go into all that nitty gritty here, but it exists in the back end to make it easier. So, so amazingly, that brings us to about 20 minutes of talking. But I guess I would just want to, because that feels very short, just ask you, Ben and Austin, if you have any sort of parting words or thoughts that you'd want to share. And then, we'll certainly look forward to, when the time comes, answering any questions.
My biggest piece of advice is just carve out 2 hours on a Friday afternoon and set it up recurring for three weeks in a row, and just like dive in, make the time, give yourself permission to explore this. Our assessment is a free tool. There are 3,700 B Corps. There are over 100,000 businesses that are using this public good. And so there's a lot that I know any business leader can learn just from diving in, opening up the hood, going in and checking it out. And so use it as part of a learning journey, and just like carve out that time and just get going on it.
Nice. Well, we were inspired by B Corp's assessment tool to make one part of our carbon footprinting tool just available on the web. And behind that is of course kind of some more technical interfaces that we use for certification. But someone can just go onto our website and initially kind of get an estimate of their carbon footprinting. And that is that's eye-opening for a lot of people. You know, people just sort of think, well, you know, I don't make products, so I don't have a carbon footprint, or you know, I just figured my electricity usage was my only source of my carbon emissions. So I think, you know, the sort of the commonality in terms of how the three of us are looking at this is like a very simple framework for understanding your business a little bit better can really lead to more significant impact. And whether that's through a technology tool or through an evaluative framework, or even just a milestone or a milepost like 1%, it's really meaningful. And the way that it transforms how people think about their own businesses, I think is incredibly powerful.
Awesome. And you know, I think I'll just wrap up by saying, you know, our planet and our people need us to take action. And there's such a great opportunity for business to, you know, lean into taking that action now. So in addition to, you know, prioritizing those 2-hour chunks on Friday afternoon, you know, recognizing and asking yourself, like, what could possibly be more important than figuring out how I can align my business with the needs of our planet and our people right now. And that can feel overwhelming, but that's where these communities, certification communities, come in, because it can break it down to size and give you that pathway to start taking action. So I think with that, we'll wrap it up. Of course, so many more angles to talk about. So, you know, we'll look forward to having some opportunities to talk with people. And Ben and Austin, thank you both so much for your time and for being such great colleagues in this shared work. And I hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks, Kate. You too. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.